Hey guys, DLynn here, hanging out with my good guy, Zion Curiel. We've got a legendary estate here with us, Spring Mountain Vineyard, my favorite AVA in all of Napa Valley. So yeah, we've got the 1988 vintage of Spring Mountain, and it's a precarious vintage, but it's a vintage that I actually quite like, from the coldest and wettest AVA in all of Napa Valley. But Zion, I think it's time we open this bottle, man, and really just have a bit of a chat about it. I'm not sure about the cork on this wine, so we've got a Duran just in case all things fail. Nothing should, but really excited to dive into this.
Absolutely.
What do you think, man?
I'm looking forward to it.
I don't think I need to go into the entire, I don't need to two-piece it, but
No.
we'll one-piece it.
There you go. You've done that before.
Yeah, like thrice.
Well done.
Let me give it a bit of a... All right, man. 88.
Looking forward to it.
Question for you.
Yeah.
What does the year 1988 take you to? Give that a good nose.
Please. Takes me to... It reminds me of when I was 10 years old. And I believe that was the year that the first time I got to see my father in the vineyards. And just kind of realizing, you know, some of the hard work that he does. My father started off picking fruit in the vineyards, and you know, when I asked to help, I really didn't know what I was getting into, but I got to see very closely the hard work that he put into on a day-to-day basis, and it just reminds me. 1988 takes me back to when I was 10, and I asked my dad very foolishly, let me work with you, and I did.
Now,
And,
where were you?
I was in Napa Valley.
All right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I want to say that it could have been Big Ranch Road, or it might have been a little bit higher.
Like kind of Oak Knoll.
Yeah.
I don't think it was named Oak Knoll just yet. Maybe it was, but yeah.
Yeah, in that vicinity.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, the cool thing about this wine is, you know, kind of pun intended, a cooler wet vintage. And, you know, look, not here to get into what's a great vintage and what's not, what's classically warm, what's off, what's too wet, what's too much rain, but 88 is a vintage that I've really always enjoyed, especially from Spring Mountain. Elevation, you know, starting at about 400 feet of elevation, all the way up to 2,400 or so feet. It's a cold, wet AVA, and for me, I think Cabernet does really well there. And some folks will say, 1988, look past it. The 87s were classic. The 84 was a hot, warm vintage. I mean, there are other vintages to talk about. But this really puts me in a place of, like, earth and volcanic soil and just slightly underripe, you know, red-toned fruit that Spring Mountain is really known for. And, yeah, I dig it, man. You know, it's 13 and a half degrees, and I think it's a very pretty wine, and 88 really takes me to a place, you know, I wasn't quite 10, just a little bit younger, and, you know, my parents didn't drink wine. I remember being in Dallas during that time. I probably would have been in, I don't know, what is that, 4th grade or so, if I've got my math right.
Yeah.
And, you know, I knew nothing about wine. I knew nothing about this world that you were already experiencing right here. Yeah. And I think that's really cool, man. I really dig that.
Yeah, Napa looked a lot different back in 1988.
Yeah.
Not as developed as it is today.
Yeah.
A little bit more rural back there. You know, certainly not as many wineries then, but a lot of fun. I remember 1988, swimming in the creeks, you know, the rope swings, you know, running through the vineyards. It was a fun place to grow up here in Napa in 1988.
So, like, you were picking grapes with your dad, man. Like, where did your dad, where did he work specifically?
Well, immigrant worker that came up out of the state of Jalisco. You know, he adopted me when I was 4, and really, you know, the father that I know. And he started with Behringer's way back then. And
Much love, yeah.
yeah, and back then, you know, it was, like I said, Behringer's was huge, you know, and that was such a great opportunity for him, and he made the most of it. And he's been there. I think he said he was going to retire in a couple years, but we'll see if that happens. But I hope so. He's put in a lot of hard work. But yeah, he stayed with that one company that whole time.
Your dad first generation here?
He is first generation.
Yeah.
Came over when he was 17.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about that. Your dad spent time at Beringer, just down the road from Spring Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Beringer kind of a part of that initial kind of old Bell project property from the 1860s. I think they might have picked up operations in 1876 and really started.
Mm-hmm.
These guys were somewhere around the 1880s. There were a few other venerated wineries on Spring Mountain, 1880s, 1890s. I mean, this is like 900 and some odd acres, and they've got 4 historic properties within the 900 acres that this winery owns.
Yep.
I mean, there was a lot going on in the 1860s, 1870s, 1880s, and 1890s. Then we've got this little phylloxera ravage, and then we've got the First World War that shakes things up. And then we're hit with Prohibition, man, 1920 to 1933. So the fact that you've got grounds like this that survive all of these decades, all of these generations, man, is mind-blowing. And to see your father come over here in the, what would he have made it here in about the 1960s?
Well, I think
70s?
too, and the reason why a lot of those properties made it is because, you know, there were a lot of orchards back then.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah.
when they weren't producing grapes, they were producing something else. If it was walnuts, a variety of different things. So Napa's been producing fruit for a very long time, before grapes even. So
Yeah, yeah.
it made sense for it to continue on.
Love that, man. You're drinking this wine, man. You are an incredible sommelier. You've spent time at TFL. You had an illustrious career there, 10, 11 years, maybe a couple years more than that. What do you sense when you taste this wine? Not the geeky stuff, but what does this wine, what does this glass take you? Does this take you to a sense of place when you drink this? Or do you automatically think of Falcon Crest, you know?
No.
I remember my mom used to watch them, man. She called them the stories. I know they're soaps, but she called them the stories, man. I remember my mom watching Falcon Crest, but I had no idea that this existed, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what this takes me back to is, you know, when I first was introduced to wine, it was from my great-grandfather, who was an Italian that made his own wine. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of that, but also reminds me of, you know, when I first grew up, the only wine I knew was Cabernet, and I'm gonna be honest with you, White Zinfandel. Those were the things that were coming from Beringer.
Of course.
So, you know, my dad would give me a taste of different things. And when I started at the French Laundry, one of the things they forced us to do when we were food runners was everyone had to learn wine. No matter what the position, you could be a server, whatever. And I remember one of the first tastings, this is some of that terroir-driven Cabernets that I first tasted. That just reminded me of that first, this is back in 1999, that I was like, wow, wine can be the uniqueness of it. And it kind of takes me back there. I don't know if it was a Spring Mountain, but I know we were drinking 1988s. We were tasting some things that had a little bit of age and depth to it. And it just reminds me of that.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
that first time where I just started opening up my eyes to wine, like just the uniqueness of it and the different, where I understood like certain areas express certain type of characteristics. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, this particular area, you know, references tasting notes like this and learning the different things. And kind of reminds me of that, just the first introduction I had into wine. But I think the first wine, I think that really kicked it off for me was, I've always had a bit of a sweet tooth. So when I got a taste of 89 Dechem, that was kind of like, I was like, okay, like wine is how incredible wine can be.
Historical in a whole different way, but historical.
A whole different way. So I think that was kind of the turning point and kind of shined a light, but this is right there.
Yeah, this for me, man, it speaks again, as I mentioned a few seconds ago, it really speaks to what I think the DNA of Spring Mountain is. You know, Spring Mountain is not Howell. You know, that goes without saying. Spring Mountain is not Diamond. It's its own unique kind of microclimate. It's a large microclimate, 8,000, 9,000 acres, whatever it is, the entire district. But, you know, at the elevation that these guys start, they're a lot bigger than us at Fantasca, but they're just beneath us. We have a good view of the Falcon Crest kind of steeple there from our winery at Fantasca, but I understand their terroir, I understand their climate because ours is much the same. You know, we've got these alluvial fans running through, we've got like, you know, basalt and andesite, all of these great volcanic rocks, and it brings this kind of smokiness and this flintiness and this extra layer of depth to Cabernet.
Yep.
Now, I'm not sure what the clones are that they use, but depending on those clones, it kind of gives you this wonderful sweet plum characteristic without being a sweet wine, because it's a bone-dry wine that's slightly underripe, a little bit tart, beautiful acidity. It's got this kind of earthy freshness to it. It's still got this buoyancy, this bounce, this lift, this spring. And this is the definition of a pretty wine that's not trying to be old world, but it has some of those throwbacks. It has some of those nods, if you will, to the old world, because it's a cool, wet AVA from a cool, wet vintage.
Right.
And I dig that.
Right.
I dig that. And no diss to the warm vintages,
Yeah.
no diss, but I dig this 88, you know?
And I know that Spring Mountain is primarily known for Cabernet, but a lot of people don't know that there's a lot of varietals that are being grown at the top.
Of course, yeah, man.
That,
Yeah.
you know, kind of like Carneros.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I know Carneros is known for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, but there is a lot of versatility in that region. At the top of Spring Mountain, that fog rolls in.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of different things that are growing up there that kind of reminds me.
And for those that don't know, you know, this winery is probably 30 miles from the ocean. You know, but of course you've got to get to the top of the Mykonos mountain range, cross over, go through the Santa Rosa Plain into obviously Sonoma,
Yep.
then to the Pacific. But you know, it's not that far from the ocean, but it is kind of shadowed by the Mykonos mountain range. And you know, these folks, they were actually the first to plant Cabernet that we know of, that we think of, that we know of. They were the first to plant Cabernet on Spring Mountain. Yeah, so it's a lot of history in this bottle, a lot of history in this glass, man.
Yeah.
So look, Zion, you are a wine director of an amazing property. And we don't have to get geeky with this, but
Yeah.
like, take us in the most subtle, chill way. Take us through this wine. Like, you look at this wine, you taste this wine. What are you preparing this with? You're at home with the kids, man. You're at home with the kids.
Honestly, you know, we're in our first week of fall.
Yeah.
And we're getting ready for the holidays. I mean, when I think of, I get mushroom, I get spice, I get a depth, I get earth notes. I think perfect for the upcoming holiday season. You know, obviously turkey and cranberry sauce. I mean, I can handle that. I think a glazed ham, but a lot of those fall flavors I think would work really nice with this. But
And it's funny how this is old Napa. You know, I guess, you know, did new Napa start like post 94 vintage? What's still old Napa? I don't know. But for me, this is still old Napa.
Yeah.
And I dig that.
Yeah.
I dig that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's showing really
Tart
well.
currants and
beautiful,
tart
good
cassis,
acid.
but it's got this beautiful spice box aroma
Yeah.
that you mentioned. There's some whetstone, there's some river rock. It is Spring Mountain, like
Yeah.
hello, but it's such a pretty wine with this depth. It honestly, and this is not me trying to pull and trying to make, oh, everything's got to be old world, everything's got to go back to the old. No, it doesn't. But
Has a little bit.
there is a very Margaux-ish essence, Margaux Appellation-ish essence to me in this wine. Again, where it's like, you mentioned cranberry sauce for Thanksgiving, but there's like this wild cranberry, wild mulberry, but they're tart though. They're just not quite fully ripe yet. And yeah, I dig that about this wine. The acidity is great. The tannins are, you know, at this age, man, the tannins have kind of come into their own, and they're not gritty, they're not too fine, they're not coarse, they're not rough, they're not astringent like a lot of the Napa cabs that may have a pinch of VA. Nothing like that. It's a pretty wine, and I dig that. I really do.
showing very well.
Finishes incredibly long too. Yeah.
Perfect bottle for us.
Yeah, man. I think so.
No,
Cheers,
but-
man.
Cheers to
Zion,
you.
really happy to drink with you, man. Glad
Yeah.
we could catch up and break bread. Amazing 88 vintage Spring Mountain Vineyard.
I'm happy to sit down with you.
Happy to enjoy
And
it with
it is an honor because I am a big fan.
Oh, geez.
You know,
Thanks,
even
man.
the nonprofits that you're doing and everything that you're excelling at right now is inspiration to a lot of people like myself. So, you know, congratulations.
Really
Cheers to
appreciate
you.
that, brother.
Cheers.